Today, I'm going to use the following materials in order to check how light will react or how light behaves when it's reflected or when I point at my source of light towards one of the materials. I'll do it from one material to the other. I'll start from the piece of wood, which I have it here. I have a piece of wood. The second material I have is a paper which has been smeared with oil. The third material I have is frosted glass. The third material I have is a clear glass. The fourth material I have is a clear piece of paper, that is a nylon piece of paper which is clear. And the third material I have is a piece of cloth. Okay, as I start with my materials, I have the first material as the wood. I have also the source of heat, or the source of light, which is the torch, which I'll direct it towards one of the materials, that is the wood, to see whether I'll be in a position to see the light on the other side of the material. If I reflect or if I light my torch towards the piece of wood, if I light this torch or the source of light towards the piece of wood, can I be in a position to see the light from the other side of the wood? If I look through the wood, after directing the source of light through the piece of wood, I am not in a position to see the light on the other side. That means light cannot pass through this object, which is a piece of wood. Let me direct the light towards the other material, that is a piece of paper which has been smeared with oil. Can I see the light through the other side? Let me try. From the other side of the piece of paper, I can see some light, but not a lot of light. That means this piece of paper is allowing some light to pass through it. Okay. If I direct the source of light through the third material, which is a frosted glass, will I see through it? Will the light pass through the piece of frosted glass? Let me try. When I direct the torch behind the frosted glass, it is allowing some light to pass through it. After a careful look, some light can penetrate through the frosted glass. The other piece of material is a clear glass. When I use the same torch, I direct light towards this clear glass. A lot of light can pass through the clear glass. Okay, that's good. I have another material here, which is a clear polythene paper. If I direct my torch behind the clear piece of nylon paper and look through it, I am in a position to see that it is allowing light to pass through. A lot of light can be seen from the other side of the transparent or a clear piece of nylon paper. From there, I'll use my own eyes to see through the materials which I have, whether it can or they can allow me to see through them. Okay, I'll start with this piece of wood. If I look through the piece of wood to check whether I can see through it or I can see the other side of the piece of wood, I can't see through it. Nothing I can see in front or ahead of this piece of wood. So the same wood did not allow light to pass through it. When I've looked through it, I cannot see objects, or I can't see through it. When I look through this paper, which has been smeared with oil, after directing the light through it, I was in a position to see just slight amount of light passing through it. But when I look through it, I can't see anything, or I can't see through this paper, which has been smeared with oil. Okay, the other material is the frosted glass. When I directed source of heat or source of light through it, that is the torch, it was allowing small amount of light to pass through it. But what happens when I look through it to see whether I can see anything? Okay, after a careful look through it, I have not seen anything through it. So frosted glass cannot allow light to pass through it, and I can't see through it. It allows just small, slight amount of light to pass through it, but I cannot see through it. The other material is the transparent or a clear glass. After I directed the light through it, a lot of light passed through it. What about when I try to look through it? Let me observe. I can be in a position to see all the objects which are on the other side of the transparent or a clear glass. So a clear glass is allowing light to pass through it, and it can allow me to see through it. Let me check through the clear piece of nylon or polythene paper. From the first experiment, I saw that when I directed light through it, it was able to pass through it clearly. And when I look through it, I can see very clearly the objects which are on the other side of this clear polythene paper. So from clear polythene paper, it is allowing light to pass through it, and I can also see through it. The other material is a piece of cloth. When I directed light through it, it was not in a position to allow light to pass through it. And when I try to look through it, I cannot be in a position to see the other objects which are behind it. Meaning that it is not allowing light to pass through it, and when I see through it, I can't see the other side of the object. After I look through all my objects, I have learned something from them. When I go back to my wood, my piece of wood, I have come to realize that when I look through a piece of wood, I can see through it. And when I direct light through it, nothing I can see from the other side of the wood. What conclusion do I make? I have come to realize that a piece of wood is a type of material which does not allow light to pass through it, and one cannot see through it. Meaning that a piece of wood is an opaque material. And I conclude that opaque materials are materials which does not allow light to pass through them, and one cannot see through them clearly. From my frosted glass, when I directed light to pass through it, it allowed just a small amount of light to pass through it, and when I looked through it, I did not see through it. I was not in a position to see all the objects which were behind it. What do I conclude? Frosted glass is a kind of material which allows light to pass through it, just small amount of light, and one cannot see through it. Therefore, frosted glass is a translucent material. Concluded that translucent materials are materials which allow small amount of light to pass through, but one can't see through them. with my third object, that is a piece of paper which has been smeared with oil, when I looked through it, I was not able to see through it. But when I directed light towards it, it allowed just small amount of light to pass through. Therefore, I can group it in the same category with the frosted glass. That is, they are translucent materials. That is, materials which allow light to pass through them, but one cannot see through them. From my fourth object, that is the clear glass. When I directed light through it, the light passed through it very well. When I looked through it, I was in a position to see all the objects on the other side of the clear glass. What then did I realize from this piece of glass? It is a transparent material, meaning that transparent materials are materials which allow light to pass through and one can see through them. Another piece of paper was the transparent or the clear piece of polythene paper. When I directed light through it, I was in a position to see all the objects through it, and the light passed through it very well, and I could see clearly through it. So I'll put them, or I'll classify it in the same category with a clear piece of glass, that is, they are transparent materials. Concluding that transparent materials allow light to pass through, and one can also see through them. The last but not least of my objects is the piece of cloth. It did not allow light to pass through it. When I also looked through it, I was not able to see the objects behind it. That is, it does not allow light to pass through it, and when one looks through it, he can't see or she can't see. Concluding that a piece of cloth is kind of material which does not allow light to pass through it. No one can see through it, therefore it's an opaque material. Okay, how about the appliances of our materials? The materials I have, how do we apply them in our daily lives? We have come to a conclusion that we have three kinds of materials. One, opaque materials, transparent materials, and translucent materials. How do we apply them in our daily lives? For example, a piece of wood is a material which is opaque. Opaque materials are used for privacy. For example, we use piece of wood in building and construction, which will not allow anybody outside to be able to see what is happening inside the houses, and also will not allow light to pass through. Therefore, it secures people when they use it in building and construction. They are secured from direct sunlight and from wind or the conditions of the weather. The application of frosted glass is applied in bathrooms. We have them in our bathrooms since they can allow light to pass through them, but no one can see through them. Therefore, it's convenience for one to use them in bathroom since it's allowing some light to pass through, but somebody from outside will not be able to see anything from inside. The same way the frosted glass is used it can be also applied to a piece of paper which is smeared with oil. The other material is the clear glass. How do we use them in our daily life? We have the spectacles, which assist people who have problems with their eyes. They are applied or they are used in spectacles since one can see through them and they can allow light to pass through. So transparent materials are used in spectacles with those people who have eyesight problem. We have the piece of cloth which has not allowed light to pass through and no one can see through it. It allows also privacy. Giving a good example with the clothes we wear. When I'm wearing my clothes, for example, I'm very comfortable since no one can see through me and no light which can pass through me as I'm wearing those clothes. Meaning that a piece of cloth is good for privacy since cannot allow light to pass through it and no one can see through it. Until next time, thank you.